okay, we're back. We are back.
Yeah.
Battery was almost dead. We're good now. So we got in our intermission, we had so much to talk about. Jeez.
We can.
Mark has to finish his quitting
Yes.
and humiliation story.
Let's just. I've had 10, 20 minutes to just sulk in that for a little bit.
Mark's been in the corner crying for 20 minutes, so we're back on the air.
Mike was doing me a favor, but seriously, somewhere between the sulking and then men paying you to flex your bicep. Okay, we are so. We are going to that as soon as I finish, and I'm going to finish very quickly so we can get to that.
The worst.
Okay.
So the long and short of it is, I'm not buying her no, and then I just decide to pull out. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because you feel good about the decision because it's selfless in a sense that like I really wanted to do it, and at 8 weeks out, I was in the best shape of my life. It was my first show, so I really wanted to get up there and do it. Mm-hmm. But in the end, like I'm approaching 40, and there's things in my life that are more important to me than doing that. So my wife and my kids come first. So I do that. But it was difficult. And then to go and tell people that you're not doing it, and you're always gonna have this kind of like judgment that people are gonna be like, oh, it's because you can't do it. And you're like, well, why do I care? Like I did it for me. Mm-hmm. I did this for my family. So you make peace with it, but it was difficult. Mm-hmm. But on to the bicep. I really want to hear about this.
Wait, before we get to that, though, we gotta finish Arnold.
Okay. Arnold, then bicep.
Arnold, then bicep.
Okay.
So you finished the Arnold. You placed 12th.
No.
Sorry, Arnold.
I placed dead last.
Olympia, you placed 12th.
Yeah.
Then you went, got married, did the Arnold, placed dead last. Mm-hmm. And what was that experience for you? Because
I was so embarrassed. I was so mortified. I felt awful for my husband. I felt awful for my brother. I felt the thing that I felt the worst about is that they had to come see me and had to figure out how to speak to me after doing something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm hiding alone in my hotel room and I'm devastated. I can tell my husband doesn't know how to console me. He doesn't know what to say. That's making me feel worse because I'm like, oh my God, I'm making you feel uncomfortable, which is like something about me. I hate making people feel uncomfortable. Yeah. Like, not in a haha, like I'm going to say something that's like a bit too far and it's funny, but like in a, I don't want to cry and I don't want someone to not know what to do around me. Like that's really hard for me in expressing my emotions. So after that, I was so embarrassed and I was like, people are coming up to me and they don't know how to talk to you. They don't want to say congratulations because you looked like shit. They don't want to say, oh, you looked like shit. People don't know how to treat you. So you're treated almost like an alien and it makes you feel awful. And the people that I'm closest with, including my husband and my brother, they also don't know how to treat me. So they're not treating me normal. And it's just making everything feel so shameful and so awful. And the best thing that someone could have done to me in that situation is come in and been like, wow, you really shit the bed. Yeah. But no one did it. No one said that to me. It was all like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Or, oh, it's like bullshit. Like, tell me that that is not a depiction of my capabilities and that, okay, you fucked up, next play. Let's move on. But none of that was happening. It was all tiptoeing. And I learned a lot myself from going through this on how I now show up with people that are in a vulnerable state. And I also was thinking about them walking around the expo and people being like, oh, I saw your wife up there. Oh, I saw your sister up there. Like, I was just like, all of this was going through my head and it was just awful. And I had I had another show planned actually. I was going to do New York, which was in May. And my parents, I was going to go down with just my parents, and we were going to do a trip to New York, and I was going to do the show, and Ian was going to stay in Ottawa because he would have been prepping by then. And it was this whole plan. And, I just couldn't do it. I got home and I was like, I can't prep anymore. Like, I'm so done. I hate everything about this sport right now. I hate myself right now. I don't even trust my ability to do a show right now. It wasn't even about the physical hormone health or metabolism side of it. It was literally just like me getting in a really shitty headspace and saying, fuck everything. And I did just that. And we moved into our new house, I think the week after the Arnold. And I just remember going into the deepest, darkest hole that I'd ever been in my life. I started Game of Thrones, which was great. That's a great show. But you can really lose your entire life. So all I did was I sat in a dark basement. I didn't shower. I didn't change my clothes. And I probably ate my body weight in mini eggs. And I did that for, I don't know, 2 months straight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I started playing Spyro on Nintendo or on PlayStation because I didn't want to leave my house. And I don't play video games. I don't even binge watch TV.
Yeah.
And all I was doing was eating junk food. I don't think I ate a single actual like healthy food. It was all junk food, chips, chocolate, cookies, binging. And all I did was watch Game of Thrones and play video games. I didn't change my clothes. I was wearing Ian's clothes by that point because I blew up. I think I got up to 210 pounds.
Oh, wow.
I was so overweight and I was so unhealthy. And I just remember hating myself. Extreme self-loathing, like so bad. And it kind of, I think actually Ian's friend at one point looked at him and was like, hey, like, is your wife okay? Like, she doesn't really look so good. Like, I came over last week and I'm here today. She's wearing the same clothes. Like, it doesn't really look so good. And Ian didn't tell me at the time that he had said this, but this went on for months, like well into the summer, I guess. So March until like June, maybe. And I was so unhealthy and I gained so much weight so fast. I started to convince myself that I'd given myself diabetes because I was having like heart palpitations from eating so much sugar. I couldn't sleep. My skin was awful. I had like acne that like it was so awful. I was so depressed. It's hard to even think about that time. And I think it was in like June, Ian went to the gym every day. He's still getting ready for shows. He's still doing his job. And he every day he went to the gym. He'd be like, do you want to come? No. Next day, do you want to come? No. And he kept asking. I kept saying no. And I remember one time I was like, okay, I'm going to come. So I go and we go to Good Life on Carp Road. And I'm wearing, I think, Ian's sweatpants and Ian's t-shirt. I'm like heavy, okay? Like, and not just heavy, like, oh, you've gained weight over the span of 2 years. Like, I'm swollen. It's come on fast. Like, I'm holding water. I'm very unhealthy. And I see the guy that works at the gym and he kind of looks at me and he's like, oh, look, Chubby Mel is here.
Whoa.
Come on.
And I stood there and Ian was standing beside me. And I think Ian looked at him and was like, man, you don't say something like that. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, I know, and I tried to keep it together. I went into the bathroom and I started sobbing. I came back out and I don't want to ruin my husband's workout. So I'm like, fuck, what do? I decide to go on the recumbent bike and sit down. Ian comes up and checks on me, and he's like, "Hey, are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm really not." And he's like, "I'm so sorry he said that to you." Like I just went and talked to him, and I was just like, his intention wasn't bad, but he needed to know that, like, you don't say that to somebody. Like, that's not appropriate at all. And he was like, he wants to come up and say sorry, but I told him to just leave it. What do you want? I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want him to come talk to me right now.
No.
And he was like, okay. He's like, do you want to go home? I'm like, no, you can finish. It's fine. And I think I biked for a little bit, and then I think I sat in the car and waited for him. And then I definitely did not go back to the gym.
Yeah.
And then I was just months of just like bullshit like that, and just like feeling so sorry for myself and hating myself, and like not even being able to look in the mirror. And Ian actually one day came home from the gym, and it was probably about 6:00, and I was already in bed. And he kind of came in and he was like, "When is this gonna stop?" And I was like, "What do you mean? When is this gonna stop?" He's like, when are we, like, this isn't okay. And I was like, "Well, I'm depressed." And he was like, "I know, but like, what are we gonna do about it?" I'm like, "I don't want to do anything about it." And he was like, "Okay, well, this isn't the person that I married. Like, this isn't the person that I'm choosing to spend the rest of my life with. So you need to do something about it." And he was being kind of rough. And I just remember being like, if you can't handle me for a couple months of depression, like, you don't, just so defensive, like you're whatever, you don't even love me if you can't like handle me like this. Like, I'm just going through something and I just need to be like this. And I just remember him looking at me and him being like, you are not going to wake up one morning and magically feel better. You need to try. You're not going to wake up and just be like, oh, I'm happy again. You need to put in effort. Whatever that looks like, you need to try. And if you don't, I'm sorry, I have no empathy anymore. Like, there's nothing left here. And I was pissed. I was so mad. I don't even really remember how I handled like the next day or whatever, but I decided to actually go get a job. That was my answer. So I applied for jobs anywhere. I applied at banks. I applied at, I think there was a dog walking position or a dog kennel position or a grooming position or something. And I applied at a pharmacy. And the pharmacy called me back, and I did an interview, and I got the job, and I started working at a pharmacy counting pills. And having that structure brought me out of the darkness that I was in. And I kind of started to see a side of Melissa that I hadn't seen for a few years, because I had just been competitor Melissa.
Yeah.
I hadn't been social. I hadn't been problem solver. I hadn't been like learning new skills. I hadn't been seeing this entire side of me that is so strong and so capable. And I don't mean to sound like cocky, but I'm working in a pharmacy amongst 20 people, and I'm the most well-rounded, best individual there. And I'm learning quickly, and I'm seeing my people skills when I'm helping people. And COVID hits, and I'm practicing empathy and like fear control with everybody and logic, and all these skills are coming back to life in me. And I'm like, fuck, you're a badass. Even if you're not competing, even if you came last at the Arnold, even if you are 200 pounds, you're a fucking badass. Like, you need to understand who you are as a person. And everything started coming back to me. I started going to the gym. So what I would do is I would go to work in the morning, and I would work like a dog. Like, it's nuts working at a pharmacy. You don't even have I wouldn't even have a second to look at my phone. Couldn't worry about anything. Couldn't think about social media or nothing. Like, it was just like focus. And then I wouldn't go home. I'd go straight to the gym. I'd change my clothes, and I would go do my workout, whatever I wanted. And honestly, the first day back in the gym, I tried to do a body weight lunge, and I couldn't do it. I was shaking. I had no stabilizer, no core strength anymore. It was like embarrassing. And like, I used to squat 3 plates. Like, this was like very humbling for me. But I didn't care, because I wasn't bodybuilder. I was just a girl that was trying to get back in shape, you know? And ego was gone, humility was there, and I just slowly started losing weight because I was happy again and I was fulfilled and I was eating healthy and I was moving my body in ways that I wanted to. And I healed. Wow. Yeah.
And there's a big change there from
Massive.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, thank you for sharing that, because that's beautiful that you can share that, because so many people, we talked about this during the break, are struggling with life in general, especially since COVID, where we've been isolated and torn apart in fear. But to go from being on the Olympia stage, a world-class athlete, to going down to a woman who's struggling with weight loss and depression, like the polarization of that change, it's astounding. And how you've rebounded back, I mean, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's wow.
We're gonna have to cut the break. Sorry. Like back on. We have to cut the break. 'Cause I just see the camera's dead.
It's dead?
Yeah.
She did.
We'll be back in a second.
Part.
There we go.
Bam, and we're back.
And we're live.
Ooh, okay. That was sultry.
I know.
I like it.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, this
man,
is
the
like
guy's got a voice on him.
sex phone
know.
voice.
Oh,
Yeah.
hey.
Side business.
Careful. Your bass. Your niche.
I need a cool sound here.
Wait.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my God.
Next on the stage.
You sound like Bob Strello.
I love it.
So yeah, sorry to interrupt at that point. But yeah, I think it's important for our viewers to really see and hear firsthand that, again, what we talked about earlier, that social media isn't real, and those struggles are real, and you went through it, and I appreciate, you know, we had talked beforehand. I said, is there anything that's off topic? Because it's important to ask that, and you know, we obviously hope that there's things that aren't off topic, but at the same time, respect that there's going to be, and that I know was a very challenging time in your life, a very dark time.
Yeah.
And to hear, you know, what you did to go through that and get through it, I should say, was pretty powerful. So you're at the drugstore. You got, what's the proper term? You got fangirled a few times when you had some people that recognized you.
Yeah, that was honestly probably the worst, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at that point, I'm trying to escape that,
Yeah.
and it's impossible not to. Let's be serious. I actually, the pharmacist that kind of was, I mean, I guess he was my boss. He knew my family. His son had played hockey with my brother when they were young. So the first thing he said to me when he met me was like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in a while. You've really buffed up." And at that point, that's like super triggering for me because I feel huge and overweight, and I just like kind of had to take it on the chin. And I tried really hard to not discuss anything because I wanted to rediscover myself outside of bodybuilding. And I still remember one lady that worked kind of in like a different counter, a different area of the store. She had a son who was in his 20s, and he was a fan of Christopher. So it obviously, like, she found out who I was, and then she showed everyone, like, you know, she has this many followers on Instagram. And then everyone was like, what are you doing working here? Like, and I was just like, first of all, followers on Instagram do not pay your bills. Let's be very clear about that. Second of all, like, I didn't want to have anything to do with that. Like, I was I had to heal my body image. And for me to do that, how am I supposed to have my entire success and identity tied to how I look? I have that pressure of being this fitness influencer, and I'm trying to like figure out borderline eating disorder and my body image issues. Like, you can't do that. So for me, I had to leave it behind for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I had to rediscover Melissa as a human, not as a body or as a
Yeah.
look, you know?
And how did that happen for you? You take on this job, which, many said at the time was, again, why is she doing this? She's this big name influencer, but and I don't know how many people actually at the time. I don't know how many people knew that you were working at the drugstore or not.
I don't really
I
know.
don't.
I don't think
I don't think it was.
I'm pretty sure I like ghosted on social media.
Yeah.
People were like speculating that I had gotten pregnant, that I had left because I was going to have a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just was like, that was private. Yeah.
And probably a good job to take to disconnect from social media, in the sense that you were busy, but you were also behind a counter, out of the public eye, so you could hide away there and learn who you are again in relatively quiet environment.
I mean, it wasn't quite, it was distracting, which is what I needed. At that point, I had energy that I needed to expend, and I also had to relearn how to trust my capabilities, because I had gotten into this huge, deep, dark hole of self-hatred that you need to rebuild your confidence. And how do you do that? You need to succeed at things. You need to learn, you need to conquer, and then you start to trust yourself again. You start to feel capable and confident again. And I really felt like I had to build up my confidence from ground zero.
Yeah.
And I had to do it outside of the gym and outside of losing weight or gaining followers or whatever the heck, it had to be something so random.
Do you think that experience that you went through has given you a better understanding as to the people now that you're interacting with and the struggles that they're going through? Do you feel that you were a little disconnected for a while because things on the outside appeared like they were happening quickly and pretty easy for you and your family? It was, I'm going to do bodybuilding and then I'm going to be one of the great, and it was the outside looking in, obviously. People thought it was coming quickly. And again, you and Chris, genetically, people are like, damn, this family's got good genes, so do you think that humbled you in a way to be able to connect even better with the people that follow you to this day? Because you were always the same Mel.
Yeah, I do think one of my greatest superpowers is my ability to relate to people and the safeness and relatability that people feel with me. It's hard to say, like, is it the chicken or the egg? You know what I mean? Because that humility had to be there for me to decide to go get that job, right? Because I have nothing against it, but it's not like I needed money or I'm an educated person. I was making a lot of money before. My husband makes a lot of money. I went and literally was making minimum wage doing an entry level job. And I didn't even think about it. It was just like, so, and to me, that humility led me to that decision, and I enjoyed every second of it. I did not complain. I never slacked at that job. I loved every second of it. And that humility brings the relatability and all these things. So I don't really know how to answer that, to be honest, because everything kind of just, I think it all relates,
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is that the Mel before the Arnold was that personable individual. A lot of people, that's what they drew. Their draw to you was that you were I guess authentic is really what you've always been known for. And you've always had this ability to make a complete stranger feel like a part of the family, if you will. And then you went through this struggle, and you went into a deep dark space, and you were there completely. There was a complete disconnect from everybody, and then getting back into. Was it the workplace? Was it the time away that got you out of? I don't want to say that rut, but out of that dark space that you were in. Do you think that time away, humbling yourself with that entry level job, was what you needed? I guess at that time. Do you think that that's part of what formed the Mel that we have today? Going through that, and you experienced all of that.
I think it was a vessel. Yeah. I think it could have been anything, to be completely honest. I think where I ended up and why I chose that is like reasons for other things. But I do think my choice to go get a job, because I knew that was going to help me bring me out of my darkness and make me feel valuable as a human again, speaks to my self-awareness and my resilience. So listen, I'm happy it happened. I'm very happy because I learned so much about myself and how to cope, and honestly how to like regain trust in myself. But if I'm being completely honest, I think the entire lesson that the universe was trying to teach me was actually trying to pull me away from bodybuilding and not trying to heal me so I could get back into it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that was the question I was going to get to, is because we don't know, obviously, if you're going to continue to pursue bodybuilding or no. Is this potentially the moment where you decided that maybe there was a different Mel, not a different human being, but a different path? And that was your first step towards acceptance, which was the beginning of the healing process. Is that possibly?
Yes. So I have a very hard time understanding. I guess the answer is probably different for everybody, but I have always struggled with this idea of being really good at something and hyper-focused to be successful and get to the top. And for me, I think when I kind of stepped away from it, I was able to see that that wasn't the only path to success, that I could do anything else that I wanted to, but I was still, I still felt like I was supposed to be like back there. I still felt like maybe sometimes to be successful, you have to force yourself to do things that are uncomfortable, that you don't really like, that don't feel easy. And I still believe that. But what I've learned in the last probably 2 years of my life is that there's a difference between persevering and working hard towards something and then forcing something that is actually not aligned with who you are as a person. And when you're trying to push too hard against who you are as a person and you're not aligned in your goals and your choices, the universe is going to give you a million different signs in a million different ways to tell you to slow the fuck down and change your path. And I wasn't listening because I felt like sometimes things are hard and you just need to push through it to be successful. So the last probably 4 years of my life, I've been living in this idea that like my genetics are so good. I'm like relatable. So I'm good for bodybuilding and women. I'm still feminine and I'm good for figure because I'm, still beautiful and muscular. My brother does it. My husband does it. This is like what I'm supposed to do. You just need to like do it. You it's hard. It's supposed to be hard. If it was easy, everyone would do it, whatever people say. And I don't think I was following my path. I think I thought it was my path, but I don't think it is anymore. And I do think that first time struggling after the Arnold was a time for me to kind of slow down and listen. I wasn't in the place where I could. I did heal myself by leaving, and that made me feel okay to not do it, but something kept pulling me back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think I see a pattern because I've spoken to so many incredible people in my life, and I love it when you guys share because I get to learn so much from it. But one thing that I've always learned, and if anybody listening to this can relate, is the hardest time is in that darkness. Like you were literally in a dark room for months. You went from being a world level super athlete to a woman who is struggling with her weight. Like you've gone to total polar opposites. But in that darkness, in that moment, there was a rebirth of self. And that darkness actually is what pulled a new light to you and a new purpose. So I think it's don't be in despair when you're in darkness, but just remember that you're undergoing a transformation. And all you need to do is to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And, you know, we hear about people sometimes taking their own lives and things like that. If you don't have anybody, reach out and talk and ask for help, because help is the most powerful word in the human language. Don't believe me, run outside your building and yell help and see how many people come.
Yeah.
Right? So it's imperative, and it's incredible that you've gone through
Yeah.
it. And I think that you're a true leader in showing that what you do doesn't define who you are. Who you are defines who you are. And I think you've done an incredible job with that. And I think it's commendable that you share that story.
Yeah.
you.
No. Yeah. Absolutely. Mel, when you went through that and you got to the other side, what were those conversations with Ian like during that time when you were talking about, I don't know if this is my purpose. I don't know if this is what I really want in life as far as the competitive side of it. You still want to be healthy and active, and that's ingrained in you. But the competitive side, what were those? If we were a fly on the wall, what were those conversations like?
The thing that's hard about me is that I'm such a stubborn, convicted person that it's really easy for me to convince people that I know what I want and that I'm going after it. And even if there's like a doubt of like, are you sure this is what you want? I'm like, yeah, of course, I know. And then it's like, okay. And there was a lot of that, to be honest. And I made a joke to Courtney the other day because I was sharing with her that I was done competing. And she's very similar in terms of my kind of actions over the last 4 years in terms of I'm going to do a show. Oh, I'm not. Oh, I'm going to do a show and I'm not. But she's just a bit more like, I don't want to say flaky because it sounds so negative, but she's just less convicted when she talks about her decisions, right? And I was talking to Ian when I made my decision to drop. I was getting ready to do Toronto.
Yeah.
And I woke up one morning and I said, babe, I need to talk to you. And I started crying because it's very emotional for me to say goodbye to this part of my life. And he basically was just like, okay, my only question is why are you stopping? And I was like, because I don't want to do this anymore. And he was like, that's the reason? I'm like, I don't want to do this to my body. I don't even really want to look like this anymore. I don't want to train like this. I don't want to do this anymore. And he was like, great. As long as it's not because you're scared of failing and you're not, you're coming from a decision like making place from like a positive, not from an avoidant place, then great. I'm happy for you. And I was like, I think I've been a hypocrite. He was like, how have you been a hypocrite? I'm like, I'm always telling Courtney, like, shit or get off the pot, you know, make a decision. If you're going to compete, do it. If you're not, then don't talk about it. I've been doing the exact same thing, but I am so stubborn and so convicted that I've convinced myself and convinced everyone around me that I know what I want because I'm too scared to actually slow down and figure it out. And I used to look at Courtney and her kind of like whimsicalness as a weakness. And now I see it as a power in her actually exploring possibility and living in possibility. And like, maybe I do want to do this. Maybe I don't. Whereas me, I don't even have that openness in my body. It's like, yes, you're doing this. Yes, you want it, work for it. When it's not even something that I want, that's not self-aware.
Yeah.
I pride myself of being a self-aware person. And I was just like explaining this hypocrisy that I was seeing in myself. And he was just like, I don't think that's hypocrisy, like trying to be so nice still. And I was just like, it is. Like, it's okay. This is like a huge realization for me in my life. And I'm 32 and I'm just kind of like opening my eyes to what the choices I've been making for the last 4 years. And like, have they even really been for me? Have they been? They're not for anybody else because everyone lets me do whatever I want. But like, you can't make decisions for yourself if you don't know what you want. And sometimes people just don't take the time to slow down and figure it the fuck out, you know?
When you've taken that time to figure this out, at any point, has it crossed your mind, or have you had the doubt of the one more show and just the redemption, if you will?
Yeah.
That,
Yeah. It's very, very hard to close the chapter, or close the book, I guess, with the last chapter being the Arnold. It's like very mentally tough for me. I feel like I left a lot on the field, so to say. I feel like my last showing was my worst showing, and it's like it's hard to leave the legacy behind like that. But that's not a reason to.
so is there a reason for that chapter to be closed right now for you? What's that?
So I started getting ready for Toronto, and I was like excited. I was looking forward to it. We're in Ottawa, so I was like, Toronto's great. I haven't done a show in near home in so long. And I actually started doing blood work, and I started talking to my doctor about fertility. And I'm 32 now. My biggest goal in my entire life is to have children.
Yep.
Easily, without a doubt. So now that I'm 32 and I'm thinking I'm going to compete all of this year, and then maybe next year if I'm successful, I'm thinking about what I do to my body and the age of, the 35. You hit 35 and then you're like, whatever, geriatric pregnancy. I don't even know what they call it. And I'm just thinking, okay, I'm going to start prep same way as I normally do, natural, slowly, high food, low cardio, and do all my blood work and talk to my doctor about seeing a fertility specialist just to check things out to make sure everything is there and I'll be okay when I do decide to start a family. So I go talk to my doctor and she's amazing. She's on board. She's like, I think this is very smart. I think women should do this more when they're in their 30s, that like thinking about this ahead of time is way better than trying to react after. I'm very lucky because a lot of doctors, especially in Canada, aren't preventative like that. So she referred me to a fertility specialist, and I'm like doing all this, and I'm having kind of anxiety. Every time I try to go to sleep, I'm like anxious. I can just feel like something's not right. And I don't know what it is. It's like generalized anxiety. And I sleep like a baby, okay? Like if I'm not sleeping, something is wrong and I need to address it. And Ian was struggling with his love for the sport and his fear for his health and kind of balancing those things. And also his fear of the end of his career and his inability to kind of enjoy the present because he's scared of what's going to come after. And I was kind of, not coaching him, but like coaching him through these feelings in this conversation, saying like, you need to be really convicted in your decisions, because when you trust your decisions, you just trust that everything's going to work out how it's supposed to, because you're living in your truth. And that gave me a lot of anxiety, that conversation, because I was like, oh, something's not right. Like it was in my body, like my heart was pounding, like it was just not right. And I woke up at 3 a.m. that night and I had to leave the bedroom because I couldn't sleep. And I was like sitting on the couch and I was like, oh my God, like, you can't compete. You can't take drugs. You can't ruin your hormones. Like, you can't do this to yourself. Like, what are you doing? This is not even close to in alignment for your goals for your life. You're doing anything to procrastinate. You're trying to control everything by going to the fertility, by going to the doctor. You're trying to control all these things. Yet the one thing that you can control by not competing, you're not even acknowledging that that's a possibility. What is going on? And I just said, I can't do it. I knew in that, as soon as I came to that realization, my body calmed down, everything calmed down. I fell asleep and I was like, this is it. And that's when I had that conversation with Ian. He woke up and I was like, I have to talk to you. I came to a realization last night and I started crying and I was like, I can't compete. And we toyed with the idea of competing and not using PEDs. And that was stupid. To be completely honest, there's no one at the level that I compete at that is doing that. I wouldn't look good. I would look worse than I ever had.
You've seen that meme before, right?
No.
The little twig guy who walks on stage. You seen
Oh,
that?
and when it
No.
says
There's
natty or something. Yeah.
It's like when you go enter the wrong competition, it's natty, and then there's like
Yeah, and honestly, I feel free to speak about this because before you didn't really talk about it, right?
Yeah. Right.
Like women don't talk about this shit when they compete. Like it's all like,
Yeah.
oh no, I'm natural. Okay,
Yeah.
honey.
It's called open show.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
let's not lead people on to think that like that's just not fair to me. I didn't lie about it, but I would avoid talking about it before.
well, it's like growing up. I remember they used to have they used to actually put it in the cereal boxes. They used to put the bodybuilding videos on it, and I remember it was Muscle and Fitness.
Yes.
And
Oh yeah.
Jesus, I remember looking at it and being this little kid, and eyes are as big as impossible. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, all I have to do is take protein, and I'm gonna look like
Yeah.
that. Oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Nope. Not
My
quite.
poor parents spent so much on protein.
Did it work?
Wait, did you ever look
it
like
work?
that?
2-ton Tessie walking around.
Oh my God.
I went from running to football, actually.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go.
And something paid off.
Yeah.
Became a linebacker.
Size works there.
Yeah. It was definitely that. So we have 30 minutes on this thing, and I'm going to reset it, okay? We're going to take a pause. And we're back. Sorry about that. All right. So where were we?
I can't remember.
We were talking about fertility, that moment for you where you just had that conversation in the morning with Ian and talking about that. Now, on that topic, then you have, I mean, we talked off camera, but how was that conversation? You have Ian, who's prepping right now, so he's getting ready for Toronto, which is how many weeks out are we now?
10?
About that, yeah. So,
Something like that.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so 10 weeks. By the time you see this video, Toronto may have happened.
Maybe.
No, maybe.
I don't know.
So
Depends how
Depends
many.
on our editing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
depends
yeah.
how many you're banking before you.
the editing team here is weak. So how did that conversation though? Because you're talking about yourself. You're like, I can't take drugs. I can't do this. I can't do this to my body. Well, you're 50% of it. So how does that look like for you two then with those conversations?
Listen, if you go back to 8 years ago when we used to talk about like competing as a family, there are literally interviews of him saying like, listen, because people would always ask him about like the Bumsteads, you're coaching the Bumsteads. And he used to always say, he'd be like, listen, Christopher, born to do this. Without a doubt in my mind, this man was born to do this. Melissa, she fell into it. She could do it. She could not do it. She doesn't really care. And I actually saw an interview that I did. It was in the Canada Courier, which is like a small newspaper in Canada. And I was interviewed and I said like, yeah, I enjoy doing this, but if it ever starts to hinder other aspects of my life, I don't want to do it anymore because I do it because I love it. And it was always like that for me. You know what I mean? It really was. And it wasn't a bad thing. It was just, that's what it was. And Ian has always looked at it like that for me.
Yeah.
He took it as seriously as I took it, for sure. And he was always invested in what I wanted. But he kind of always knew in the back of his head. And he also has been getting ready for shows for the last 4 years while I haven't been competing. You know, he competed while I was like in the basement for a year.
Yeah.
He wasn't great that year. It wasn't easy for sure. But like the first thing he thought about was just like, make sure you're making this decision for you. And if it is, then give her whatever you want. Let's do it.
I guess everybody else is wondering, are you afraid to have a little Ian that's as wide as he is tall that you have to give birth to? Because
Man, if they see that in the ultrasound, I'd just be like, cut me open because I'm not even trying it, okay?
just like, forget it,
Come
C-section.
on, just chop me open. Like,
kids-
there's no way.
the kid's 16 inches tall and 35 inches wide.
Listen, the length wouldn't be
17
scary. It'd
pounds.
be the width. It'd be the width, okay?
Isn't that always the case?
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
Oh my God.
wait.
Wait a second.
There it is again.
Yeah, no. In all seriousness, I mean, having a kid, that's a big step. That's
Yeah,
huge.
I mean, that's the goal, though.
But that's what your aspirations growing up. You always had. How does Ian feel about having little Bambino?
I mean, I feel like if anything, Ian wants it a little bit more than me. You know, he's like, he really wants to be a dad. He's wanted to be a dad since I was 25 years old. So
I think anybody who's ever seen Ian with your little Frenchies
oh my God. Yeah.
understands that
Or him with a baby. It's ridiculous.
he's meant to be a dad.
It was like pretty early on. We were at Kelsey's and we were having dinner with his dad, and there was a baby like on the table behind me. He was sitting across from me, and I just saw Ian like, you know, looking around, smiling, and he'd be like, "Oh, look at that baby. He's looking at me. He's looking at me." And I'm just like, what the fuck? Who cares? And we're like 23 and this is happening. The mom like starts noticing like, oh, he really likes you. Come over. And Ian's like, really? Ian goes over. He's like, can I smell his head? And like, he's just like enamored by this baby. And I'm like, and then everyone's looking at me like, doesn't this hurt your ovaries? And I'm like, no, what the fuck? Like, no, he's obsessed. He's literally.
Does it hurt your own?
Yeah, because people automatically assume if a woman sees her man like being sweet with a baby that she's just like so. And I'm not like that. He is like that with the dogs, with babies, with his niece. 100%. I'm just like, yes, the goal for sure is to have a family, but I'm not like you hand me a baby and I'm like what the fuck? Like I can't. I don't know what to do with it. You know?
Because you're an all or nothing personality from the very short amount of time I've gotten to know you.
Yeah.
So I think when you decide to have the kid, it's in your all or nothing, you're going to be bam. Then all of a sudden your ovaries hurt when you see that, I assume.
I could understand that.
Yeah.
I believe that too.
So I guess just a quick rewind. Is that a world exclusive that Mel is done with bodybuilding? It's official.
It's done.
Does it feel good to say that?
No.
No. How does it make you feel?
Sad.
Yeah.
It's very sad. It's like listen, it's like saying goodbye to something that you love. And it's not, it's never gonna, it feels right. It feels like there's no other choice, but it doesn't feel good. No.
If we were talking to Mel 2 years ago, fair to say that wouldn't be the case.
Oh my God. If you were talking to me 2 months ago, I wouldn't have said that.
And
I
this
would
is
have.
fairly recent. Yeah.
Yeah. This was maybe 4 weeks ago.
So stick with it because I'm terrible at editing these videos and I don't have to delete it out and when I see you on stage in Toronto,
It's not happening.
Right.
listen.
Listen, I have never. It's the same
Yeah.
thing when I was talking about when I left my ex when I was young. It's the
Yeah.
same thing when I said I was going to marry Ian. I have never once said out loud that I was done competing because I didn't know that I was.
Yeah.
And I haven't been on stage in 4 years, but people would always ask me. I'd be like, "Oh yeah, no, one day." Like I'm never say never, but like now I can easily say. Like if you hear me say like never, like it's.
Do you find it weird that you became so known for bodybuilding and fitness as a whole, and you've been out of the sport yourself for 4 years,
Yeah.
and you were really in it for a short period of time.
Yes.
Do you find it weird that how, I don't know, society or the followers in that just automatically associate you with that?
No,
Like-
because it's my brother and my husband. You know what I mean? And I'm still at like every show with them, and I'm still, I've been training like a bodybuilder for the last 4 years too, and that's what they see. You know what I mean? Like people don't follow bodybuilders because they're on stage for 5 minutes a year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're following everything leading up to it. And for me, especially, I don't think like my following isn't super big, especially compared to like Courtney and Ian
Yeah.
and Christopher. But it's very, very genuine because I feel like the people that started and the people that stayed are not actually there for the bodybuilding. They're there for Melissa. You know what I mean? Melissa as a sister, as a friend, as a wife, as someone who struggles, as someone who gains weight and loses it. Like it's just and like you can actually really see that in my engagement and like the people that actually stay around when I leave for a year at a time. And I think I'll always be known in the bodybuilding world because I'm always going to be there. You know what I mean? I'm like, my brother is the most famous bodybuilder of history. My husband is like huge and he's extremely educated. And I think until the day he dies will be a voice of, you know, reason and a voice of education for bodybuilding. So I don't think that's ever going to go away.
What do you think will be next, other than obviously kids? What do you think will be next for you in that world?
I'm going to lean into health, you know what I mean? And body image health and training and moving and eating to not only feel good about the way I look, but to feel good about how my body feels in terms of like mobility, posture, flexibility, all these things. And to be honest, like there's way more people that are going to watch that than some girl take a bunch of drugs and get on stage in a sparkly bikini.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
It's
no.
not it's also very hard to put stuff like that out there and feel good about it. Like it became even tough for me to be in the gym and have like young girls come up to me and be like, I want to do this. And me being like, if I had a daughter, I wouldn't want her to do this. It's tough.
Interesting.
You know? It's tough.
What would when you talk about having young girls come up to you in the gym and that, do you ever have those? I mean, it's kind of a weird situation to be in to have those real talks. But have you had an opportunity to have some of those discussions with those, or is this something that you're looking with what you and Courtney are doing with the Giver podcast? Are you looking for that as a platform to have those discussions, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the girls that I meet, I always am honestly very upfront.
Yeah.
I would never tell someone not to do it or to do it because that's not my place. I would never want to have that much power over a choice like that for somebody.
Yeah.
But what I can do is educate them in terms of how it's affected me, things that I weren't really prepared for going into something like this. Things that some people tell girls that women are taking to compete at this level, which are completely not true.
Yeah.
Because yes, I was not natural, but trust me, I was not taking half the shit that people come up to me and tell me they read that I was taking on the internet. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And that is a thing that is not discussed enough, because there's girls that are in their early 20s that have coaches that are saying like, here, take this. These are what these girls do to get to the Olympia. So you need to do it. And then all of a sudden you've changed your entire hormonal makeup for the rest of your life. Like you can't
Yeah.
do that.
That's what I love about Ian on social media is that he is such a straight shooter with that. And I mean, back in the day before, Rich passed away, he was again one of the at the forefront of that too. And to this day, Ian, you'll see where individuals will write when Ian has his Saturday questions or whatever he does. But when he has those, I love the fact that he probably bores the hell of him that he gets asked the same questions over and over and over again. But at the same time, he takes the time to just be like, no, like taking this and this, you don't need it. Like train yourself to the point and then go to the next stage. And if you're just a weekend warrior, why are you bothering with this?
I think people think that it's like just like some flippant thing that has no consequences, and like it's not a joke. You know what I mean? Like people, like these guys that are competing at the top, they're very smart. They have doctors that they go see and get checked all the time. Like this isn't just like it's not like for fun, and it's not a joke. And I think that because people are so scared to talk about it, then no one talks about it, and then people just like do what they want or do what they think is best, and it's dangerous. And like honestly, when I first started competing, like if I look at Nicole Wilkins when she won the Olympia, or Erin Stern when she won Figure Olympia, she was less muscular and softer than the girls that are winning bikini. Any girl competing in bikini these days. So there is a high possibility that 10 years ago, all the girls were natural. You know what I mean? But things with the internet have changed so much so fast. And it's okay to take a step back and be like, you know what? Where this sport is right now is no longer aligned with me. And that's okay.
Yeah. And with you and Courtney both coming from this world, I mean, I know I'll be listening to that podcast because I'm interested to see how the two of you, with Courtney being a little bit younger, still might have those aspirations of competing.
No.
Not.
No.
She's gone back and forth with it, but now it's a no too.
Listen. Yeah. Courtney got really, really, really sick the last time that she got ready for a show. Like really unwell for a long time, and it took her a long time to heal her body. Yeah. And she is so health focused now, and she is so like, you can see it in her skin. She's like vital, and she just like takes such good care of herself, and she's so natural. Like there's no way that there would be any positive to her going back into that world. But it is very hard to say goodbye to that. And it's harder when you know how good you could be. You know what I mean? Like she won.
Exactly.
She was the best in the fucking world. And she probably, if she decided to put herself through that, she probably could be again. And it's very hard ego-wise to even not do that. But that's not the right reason to make decisions like that.
No, it is. It's extremely, extremely difficult for, and it's not just extremely difficult on the competitor, it's the family too, right? It's so much that you go through, and it is challenging for that family, that support system that you have in place, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of sacrifice that comes from all angles when you do that at any level.
Now, do you think that when you talk about not competing, is there a slight chance that we might see the natty version compete?
No.
Not at all?
But,
it's just the competition itself?
Maybe if they change the entire framework of the female divisions, but I would go up there and I get smacked, you know what I mean? And that's I'm not, I can get in the best shape of my life naturally and not get on stage and get smacked, you know?
Yeah.
Like that for sure will come because I like pushing myself. I like you know, pushing and like suffering, and you get like, you know, when it's like a runner's high, or when you push a set to failure, like it's a different kind of feeling that you can't really get anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I'm just learning where that's going to come from now for me. You know what I mean?
So what's the next big challenge then for?
I mean, I've started circuit training, which is fucking hard. I can't believe how different it is in terms of your like cardiovascular and your muscular endurance when you're training like that. So that's what I'm doing, and I really, really like it. And now I'm just trying to get like super fit and feel good about my body, feel good about my mobility. I want to be able to run. I want to like, you know, lose a bit of muscle up top and kind of fall back in love with my like feminine figure and feel like a badass bitch. Simple, right?
I love it. I love it.
If it was simple, everyone would do it, right?
Man, so good.
No, it's important that people realize that stress that it brings to the life. Really, really does, you know. So now that we've gotten that, I mean, world class, first podcast, and we get a big announcement. You're not going to compete, and you're going to be having a Bambino at some point.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Starting your new podcast, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really good time too for me to like share this transition, because a lot of my life has been growth and transition and then sharing. And I think I'm now at a place where I can share during it, and I think that's going to bring a lot of value not only to other people but to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
And Ian, he's still competing. He's still doing his thing. Chris is still doing his thing. I mean, it's pretty funny because anytime you see any of the videos of either of them, who do you hear in the stands is you.
yeah, I know. I scream like a fucking banshee every
Yeah.
single time. I lose my mind.
It's
Awesome.
pretty amazing to see. Yeah, no, it's exciting for you. It's certainly it's a transition in your life, and it's cool too that you're young. I mean, you got a whole lot of life ahead of you, and I think that everybody's excited to see what's that next step. Are you looking to maybe reinvent yourself on the podcast itself now, and show that other side of Mel that maybe people didn't know before, didn't see it before? Because now you get like a chance like this where you talk for X amount of time. People really, it becomes intimate.
Yeah.
And you really get to diverge a lot of information that you didn't before with that, like you said, that quick snap on Instagram.
Yeah, no, my goal in starting Giver is to kind of lay it all out.
Yeah.
Because there's not really anything in my life that I feel the need to hide. There's not really anything that I don't think people will relate to.
Yeah.
I think there's some things that I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know when I'm going to want to have a kid. I don't know what's necessarily next for me in terms of my fitness journey, or I was going to say business, but I do know what's next for that. But it's also all right to share during those periods of figuring it out. And I think that's kind of going to be exciting for me and exciting for Courtney, because she's also kind of stepping into herself too, you know?
I think that's the fun thing is, again, with social media, you always get a snapshot of like where people are at their prime. And all the steps that lead to that, they don't see. And I think it's fun that you'll share it in that way, because I think all of us are just falling forward from one thing to the next. We don't actually know what the hell we're doing.
Nobody does.
Right?
Nobody knows.
No. It's like, what's next? I don't know, man. I'm trying to figure it out. When I get there, I'll let you know. I'll put it on Instagram.
It's also so beautiful not knowing. You know what I mean? Because let's try to picture a life where we did know, where we were working 9 to 5 and we knew we were going to retire at 65, full pension, and everything was going to be laid out and the same, which is possible. Some people live like that.
Yeah.
To me, that's not for me. That's for some people. That's not for me. The fact that I don't know and that I can stumble into something and I have the means and the opportunity to say yes to things and to say no to others, and that I might not know what's going to fall in my lap in the next 10 years is like the most beautiful part of my life.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I love that.
We've been going for 2 hours and 40 minutes.
I'm so sorry, everybody.
I don't know
love
why
it.
she keeps saying sorry.
They're going to be asleep by now.
No, man.
But it's not live.
This
We're
is so
recording this.
good.
Yeah, I know. But by the time they get to this 240, they're going to be like,
Not at all. No, there's
Yeah,
value in
no.
this. There's absolutely value in this. And there's so many things that I want to ask. And
I
talk
mean,
about.
I'll be back.
Well,
I
and
know.
by
Exactly.
she's the best guest we've ever had.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
I know.
Guest
You're so
number
welcome.
one.
Oh, I know.
You have to tell me as soon as I lose that title and who it's to.
Well, I think you just set the bar.
You'll
quite high.
always be guest number one. Don't worry.
That's right.
That's special.
No, we really do appreciate all your time. It's with us putting this together and we creating this list of different people, and it's like between the two of us, in just interesting people that we know, and of course I think the world of you and your family, and so I want to be able to share your guys' story too, because I think for myself watching, I see a lot of people that will, when we talked about it earlier, put things on social media and there's this and that.
Yeah.
And you just kind of get sick of seeing these things because you see a different person than what.
It's
People-
hard when you know someone, and I have a hard time with Courtney with that.
Yeah.
I know her so intimately, and she is easily one of my best friends and one of my favorite people
Yeah.
in the world. And it's hard to see her on socials because I'm like, I know her so intimately that I'm like, oh, that's weird. I mean, kind of my brother too, to be honest. Because his Instagram has become more business. Of course, it should be. But it's, I kind of look less at their stuff because it's not, like, I get so much more in the real.
You get the
know?
treat of actually
Yeah.
knowing them.
Yeah, I get the gift. So
Yeah.
that's kind of just like, at some point it's like, oh, like, did you see my post? I'm like, no, I'm sorry. But like, I got to talk to you on the phone for 3 hours yesterday. And like, that's,
That's the best.
Yeah. But no, I'll come back. And I mean, I'm sure Ian will come. And then you can
Yeah.
have both of us together.
That would be incredible. I'm so looking forward to meeting Ian on the podcast. Yeah. And having you guys together would be amazing.
A marriage counseling on
we-
Noble Conversations.
Are we
No.
the one getting the counseling from what I've heard? I mean, I want tips.
We like to podcast together. It's interesting. Yeah. No, it's fun coming on together.
No, we'll definitely have him on when Chris and Courtney get back to the big country of Canada.
Yeah.
Get them out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always nice to have just interesting conversations with this stuff. And I think we're off to a hell of a start. I really do.
Yeah.
It certainly doesn't feel to me anyways. I was dragging my ass when I got in here. Let's be honest. I was dosing up on coffee like crazy.
8:00 on Sunday night. He's like, give me the
Oh, yeah.
espresso, baby.
Yeah,
Let's go. Let's go.
But that's the importance of having, a good conversation with people.
Yeah.
It's just it flows.
It's energizing for sure.
Yeah.
For
I
sure.
feel
100%.
great after this conversation. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so pumped up.
Yeah.
Ian will be happy that we did it under 5 hours like expected.
Yeah. Babe, it's only 9:00. I'm early.
He's going to, so Mike wasn't there tonight.
Yeah, Mike wasn't there.
I need a crying button on this thing.
I'm sure,
You need that one.
I'm sure there is one
No,
somewhere.
yeah, we'll find it. We'll
find
it. By the next time you're on the next conversation, we'll be that much better for all this fancy stuff that we're still learning. But in the meantime, Al, thank you again for everything. I greatly appreciate it. Maybe quick shout out your Giver podcast. Where else are people finding you?
Okay, well, our Giver podcast is the Instagram handle. We don't even have an episode up yet, so I don't know where you can find
TBD.
it. TBD. Anywhere,
Yeah.
it'll be anywhere on YouTube and anywhere you can find podcasts. My Instagram is Melissa Bum, at Melissa Bum, and yeah, that's really where I'm chilling lately.
You doing that?
Sometimes I'm on Ian's YouTube. If you want to go to Ian Valliere on YouTube and help
Yes.
him out, because he's
Give
my
the man
man.
a like, a follow.
That's right.
And go follow Sebum because he needs all the help he can get.
Oh, yeah. He needs more followers. He doesn't have enough.
God. I got kind of funny stories real quick, but when I was doing photos with Chris, when he was kind of just getting started.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I remember he would go and buy clothes to
shoot in.
So
Yeah.
that he could possibly get sponsored by them.
Yeah.
And it worked. But I remember I'd get just inundated with these messages from men and women wanting to connect with him. And then they would send me content to send to him. And I'm like, I am like,
Let's take a second to
Tinder?
appreciate that he was like a 20-year-old kid and he was literally buying Gymshark and getting a professional photographer to hopefully get sponsored one day by this.
Brilliant.
Like this kid was, he's so fucking smart, man.
Yeah, he's a smart dude.
yeah. Our camera just went off. Look at that. So we're still recording. We're going to finish. But yeah, no, he did it. He did it well. But you know what? And I'll say that, and I said the same thing about you, about Ian. The reason why you're successful has a lot to do, obviously, with your drive and ambition. But I think most importantly, it's because you're authentic. And the story.
Thank you.
That's what people are drawn to. I mean, if people want to say something bad about any of you, they don't know you. End of story. They just don't. And that speaks volumes. I mean, as successful as all of you have gotten, you still show up, here at the clinic. You still show up here to do a podcast on a Sunday
We're still the
night.
same people we ever were,
But that's
Yeah.
it.
I think our parents would all cut our heads off before they let
Yeah,
anybody
I remember meeting
Yep.
him at my office because one of my partners was cutting his hair previously, so they were buddies. And I didn't really follow bodybuilding at the time, so I actually had no idea who he was. Like 2-time, I think he'd won. And not knowing that, like, he's just so chill, so cool. Like, you walk in, like, he's a normal guy. And I've chatted with him a few times since then in passing. And, like, he's just a great guy to connect with, man. And he doesn't walk around like he's Mr.
he has
Olympia.
the most unassuming, most relaxing energy you will ever meet.
He's a great
and
guy.
he's like, he's probably easily one of my favorite.
He didn't
people
want
in
to
the
take his
world.
shirt off when we were at Lansdowne one time shooting. Didn't want to take his shirt off to put a new shirt on for a different photo.
He still won't do that.
And
Really?
I'm standing there going, what the hell? Like,
Yeah. He's humble.
dude, I'd be walking around in tighty whities if I had that physique.
Hell yeah.
I'd strutting my stuff.
I know.
Oh, man.
I know.
I love it.
Oh, good for you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again, Mel.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you, Ian, for giving up a Sunday night.
He's
Thank
like, good,
you.
get her out of here. No, I'm kidding.
This will be our outro music.
I love it.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Bam. Yo, that was fun.
That was